Hello and welcome to another edition of Webinar Wednesday. My name is Brandon Lilly, Senior Brand Director for Marketing 360, and today we're going to be talking about medical marketing, some strategy, tips, and tricks that we have for the medical industry. Now, like most of our webinars, all of these different strategies can also be utilized for other industries. There are always different things that you can learn and you can glean, so you don't have to have a medical practice in order to learn from this webinar, but we are going to be specifically diving in and talking about medical marketing strategies. So if you want to follow along with this presentation, go ahead and go to m360.us/C13F. Again, that's m360.us/C13F. Let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to discuss a couple of different things here, identifying your top vertical, how to define your patient profile, some different strategies and differentiators you might run into, lead funnels and channels, what those might look like, and then we'll talk a little bit about the post-conversion funnel. Now, as always, if you have questions, please chat them out to us. We're live on YouTube, so if you have any type of questions or anything like that, please be sure to let us know. We'd love to go ahead and answer those live on the air. Let's go ahead and move on. First thing we want to talk about is your goals. By identifying what kind of goals you have, this is how you can start to craft what your marketing strategy will look like. So I've heard from a few people, and I really love this saying, if you have more than one top priority, you have zero top priorities. Okay, so let's talk about what those should be. Your goals can be anything. They can be revenue. They can be increasing the amount of phone calls that you get, scheduled appointments, brand awareness, some long-term goals, some short-term goals, kind of whatever you're looking for there. You may even find, if you're writing down these goals and trying to identify what they look like, that they kind of build a pyramid, and you've got your primary goal. This is where you want to get, but you have to achieve all of these things before you can get there, right? So it doesn't matter if you kind of structure your goals or what that may look like, but please make sure that you have an end goal in mind, and then you can set these micro milestones kind of in the process there. You can set those up and start to attract them. So let's go ahead and move on to our next slide here. We're going to talk about your business model. Now, how do you want to position your company? You may already know this. You may already know that are you urgent care, maybe non-elective, elective, referral, primary care physician, kind of wherever you fall in there. Now, some may have, you may fall into a couple of buckets, right? But specifically with your marketing, especially if we're talking about just starting out or maybe starting a brand new campaign, identify the specific position that you want to take. Whether it's one of these three that I've got listed here or one of a myriad of others, these are the three that I find are most common. So we're going to talk through a couple of different strategies for each one and kind of how they differentiate from each other and how they differ in strategy. All right. So first things first, this is going to be specific for all sites. Let's go ahead and move our next slide. We're talking about the content and your site. Now, for all practices, big and small, you have to have a website, right? You have to. Your ads and your ad copy along with your website are your absolute number one representative, and it has to convey your brand message and your value proposition clearly and concisely. So when consumers are looking for a medical practice or really anything, right, they go to Google, they search, or they ask for recommendations on their social channels, things like that. But you have to make sure that when that consumer does go to the website, whether it's through a referral from a friend, a referral from another doctor, or they found you online, that your site is clearly and concisely showing what your value proposition is, and you've positioned yourself so that they are interested, willing, and wanting to connect with you, right? If your site is old, out of date, hard to operate, hard to utilize, overly complex, using overly complicated verbiage, you're adding a lot of friction to the process, and you're going to end up kind of constricting the amount of leads and phone calls that you get. Now, I've heard an excuse before, and I've specifically heard this in the medical industry, oddly enough, is that if the website or the terminology used on the website is more complex, the more complicated it is, the more likelihood it's going to drive someone to call you. And I'll tell you right now, that's a falsehood. Now, you may find that some people go, I just don't even want to read this, and they call anyway. Maybe you're their only option. Maybe you're the only name in town. But you'll find more and more that is not a great way to keep consistent customers and keep consistent clients, because they're eventually going to find another place to go. Someone else will come into town. They'll be a lot easier to use. It's a lot more user-friendly. Everybody wants something that's going to be easy. They want to feel confident and comfortable that they understand what they're talking about, and that they can trust that you will provide them the information that they need and not try to pull the wool over their eyes or anything like that. So Make sure that your site is easy to use, it's updated, it's modern, and it uses good terminology that everybody can understand. Remember, content is king, and the king of content is video. So the more videos you have on your site, also the better off you are. If you have video testimonials, if you have maybe introductions for your doctors or some of your staff, so that people can kind of become familiar with who they're speaking with or who they're going to be meeting. Anything you can do there is going to be incredibly valuable for reinforcing your brand message and increasing that value proposition. All right, any questions about the website, please be sure to chat them out to us and we'll answer them. But let's move on. Talk a little bit here briefly about different lead funnels and channels that you can go after. Now, you will also want to run this through the filter of what are the HIPAA requirements, what are some of Google's or Facebook's requirements, because they have a tendency to change based on privacy, right? So sometimes Google and Facebook get a little bit finicky when it comes to different things that are related to the medical industry because of these privacy concerns. Such as they very rarely, if ever, don't count on it, but they'll almost never let you do any type of retargeting. They would consider that kind of a breach of privacy. Same with using like lead ad forms or things like that. Generally not the direction you want to go due to HIPAA compliance and things like that. But those are absolutely things that you'll want to connect with either your marketing department or your marketing executive if you're working with us here at Marketing 360. But here's a couple of different funnels and channels that you can consider. You can look at your inbound search, your top placement ads, which is Google, Bing, local service ads. This is paid, organic, and your ranking in Google Maps. That matters. It all matters. And then we've got some outbound social targeting ads, Google Display, maybe Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Pandora, LinkedIn, kind of just what makes the most sense for your particular customer. And whether it's a family, it's an individual, it's insured, underinsured, more business professionals, whoever you cater to, that will also help you identify which channel that you want to go after. Let's go to our next slide, and you can see here, make sure you're operating on as many channels as you possibly can because all channels correlate with one another. You'll find this more and more that the more channels you're on and the more opportunity that you have, whether it's organic, it's good direct listings, retargeting if you have the opportunity, social targeting ads, YouTube, brand channels, LinkedIn, things like that, you'll find that they will all influence the growth in each other channel. And that growth is incredible, is really, really important because if you remove one of those channels, now you may say, well, this part of my top placement ads is not working. Right? Top placement ads isn't doing what I want, and you remove it, you'll generally see a negative impact in some of your other channels because it was being influenced, right? Different things are being influenced there. So we'll want to keep an eye on that and ensure that we're really focusing in on what we need to look for. Okay, so it looks like we do have a couple of questions coming in. That's fantastic. Wookie Feet, welcome back. If you use your cell phone to make comedy of life stations to sell your to sell your product, should you post it or be ashamed of its quality and pretend it was never made? Quality definitely matters, especially with video. Now, that being said, it doesn't always matter. And that might seem a little odd. The quality of video is important. Our video director always says, done is better than perfect, right? Now, as long as it's done, it's better than perfect. But that being said, you don't want to put a lot of content out there that you can't be proud of. Okay, so if you have a camera and you're like, I would be ashamed for people to see this, maybe wait a little bit, get a better camera. But video is the king of content, so you definitely want to be looking at it there. Great question. Let's move on. Next screen here, we're going to talk about our high-level statistics. Now, this is very broad, so don't run screaming or anything like that. But we're talking about a cost per acquisition. Again, for most medical clients, will generally fluctuate between $8 and $206, right? It's a really, really broad range, but this is very high level. And I like to show this because you don't want to get yourself trapped in this idea that you are going to be generating calls or generating leads at like $2, $3, $4, per lead or per patient, really. This is a cost per acquisition also. So we're not exactly talking about the amount of times that someone clicks on your ad or clicks on your site. This is the cost that it takes on average to convert someone into scheduling an appointment, coming into the office, whatever you're counting as that final conversion, right? Okay, so between $8 and $206, which for some industries may make perfect sense. It may make an incredible amount of sense. At $200, worth it because of the amount of income or the amount of revenue that's going to be generated from it. Now, other ones, if you're just doing like a primary care physician, just doing a health checkup, $200, it might be extremely expensive. That might not be worth it. So you want to kind of look at it and kind of consider what that's going to be. Cost per click between $2 and $14. That'll depend on the type of ad, your industry, how much competition you have, the keywords you're going after, whether it's a call-only ad or a text ad, things like that. So there's a lot of variance there as well. Average overall conversion rate is generally between 2.4 and 7.6%. Google's average is a 1% click-through rate and a 1% conversion rate. So when you start to see averages like this increasing, that's where you kind of hit the nail on the head. At Marketing 360, we like to tell our clients that our first primary milestone is a 3% conversion rate, and then anything that we grow to beyond there, that's our first milestone, and then everything is growth beyond that. Typical conversion rate with top placement ads or paid advertising, 3.8 to 25.57. So if you've got a really just focused campaign, you can get an incredible conversion rate on there. And your ROI will vary wildly. So depending on your specialty, depending on what kind of code you're billing or anything like that, your ROI better than anybody else. So as you're identifying your goals, like we talked about earlier on, and you kind of reference those with not just these stats, but then what you're seeing in real life, you'll kind of be able to understand what your true ROI is. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We're going to talk really quickly through a couple of these different verticals. So first thing we'll start off with is strategy for urgent care, right? Now, these strategies can be intermingled. This is just what we've learned over years and years of doing this for different clients. For urgent care, a lot of what we're seeing is that people typically are searching in off hours, right? Generally speaking, urgent care is not something that's very well planned for. So you can't really plan for this. So if you're a 24-hour facility or an 18-hour facility or what have you, you can schedule your ads in AdWords. You can schedule your ads in Facebook or anything like that. But specifically, people are generally going to be actively searching because they need something. Social targeting ads is probably not going to be the solution you're looking for here because this is an immediate need, right? So use ad scheduling in AdWords to make sure you're showing up in those off hours. Typically, the patient doesn't have a primary care physician or they're traveling from outside the area. Call-only campaigns are just incredible because what we found is that a lot of people will just search for it right here, right on their phone. If they're traveling, if they're maybe unfamiliar with the area, they're not near a computer, anything like that, they will look for you. And if the first ad that comes up is a click to call, they click it, it rings, you pick up, and now you've got the potential to have a client. Also, kind of a pro tip here, if you have more than one location, then you need to have more than one tracking phone number. Nobody cares about what your company number is, or you spend a lot of money on a vanity number or anything like that, that no one remembers what they are. Most people barely remember their own phone number. Now it's all in our address books. And if it's on Google, the likelihood of that being called again and again and again is very unlikely. So use call tracking within your ads. And this goes for anybody across any industry in any vertical. Use call tracking. That way you can identify what ads are driving what phone calls to what areas, or what locations. It's incredibly helpful. Additionally, you want to break down your paid campaigns by your location. Don't just do a mass, mile radius. All 6 of my locations are in here. It's not valuable. Run a specific campaign with a mile radius that you've defined for each specific location that you have if you have multiple locations. Finally, you need to have a location finder on your site also. So that way, if somebody finds a particular site, maybe they're at work, they find the location that's nearest to them at the office. Well, it may make more sense for them to go to the location that's across town because that's closer to their home. So you want to make sure that you've got the addresses and the locations of your other locations there, maps, directions, phone numbers, things like that, because then that way you're able to drive someone, closer to where it's more convenient for them, and you're able to increase your opportunity for conversion that way. Lastly, generally speaking, these are individuals that are not likely to fill out forms. They don't want to provide lead information. They don't want to wait for a call back. anything like that. It's just not valuable to them, right? This is a very much an immediate need when we're talking urgent care. So don't try to direct people to filling out a form. Try to direct them to call now, get directions. Those are your call to actions that you really want to focus on. Let's go to our next slide here. The cost per click and the click to call on mobile tends to work best with a cost per click of around $2 to $6. Kind of varies there. Again, don't take these numbers and just set them in stone and just believe them as gospel, because they will absolutely change based on your area, based on your competition. Somebody who is in Atlanta, Georgia is going to be paying a lot less than somebody who is out in the boonies of Kansas, or sorry, Atlanta's going to be paying a lot more than someone out in Kansas. There's a lot more competition, a lot more going on there. So just keep that in mind. You want to make sure that your average position is staying in that first, maybe first and a half kind of average. On mobile, that you generally only see 2 ads on top. So if you're averaging 1.5, you can pretty much guarantee you're showing up in position 1 or position 2, which is where your ads need to be. Utilizing a CRM or email or text messaging is a little tough due to HIPAA compliance. So a lot of physicians use an EMR system, which is just the electronic medical records, which replaces a lot of the CRM functionality. So keep an eye out for an EMR if you're not already using one. And generally speaking, you're not going to see a whole lot of repeat patients unless they are, you see this a lot with college students. Maybe they don't have a primary care physician in the area, an urgent care, they have a good experience there. Next time they're sick, they go back to that urgent care. But typically, with urgent care like that, you're not going to see a lot of repeat, hopefully not a lot of repeat customers, right? But then again, also you want to increase your revenue. Let's move on. If you have questions about urgent care strategy, go ahead and chat them out. But now we're going to move on to non-elective, okay? So the non-elective, this is where we get a little bit more broader because these are things that you need to be showing up for consistently, not just in ads, because this is generally something that's going to be planned for, right? You plan a little bit more in advance, and maybe you can even do a little bit of research and kind of identify what you want to do here. So AdWords, Bing, social, SEO, natural listing ads, top placement ads, all of that is incredibly important. This is one of those areas where being on every single channel provides an awful lot of value. Social targeting ads work very well to develop brand awareness for people that have recently moved to your area. You can target kind of new and acquire new folks. And another thing that you really want to do is you want to make sure that your services are easy to understand. A lot of folks kind of fall into the medical terminology, and that's valuable to an extent. But most people are going to be searching or looking for things in layman's terms, especially if they kind of understand what what they're looking for. They're going to kind of search for it in their own words. You can also use physician-based platforms, kind of getting your name out there a little bit more. Healthfinder.gov, Medicare.org, Vitals.com, ZocDoc.com, and reviews are incredibly valuable here. So I always like to recommend Top Rated Local. It's a free platform. You can go ahead and list your business there, and it's a review aggregate. So it pulls in the review statistics from all your other review sites and gives you an aggregate score there. So there's a lot of value. Let's move on to our next slide here, and we want to talk about a couple of things that you can do to make this just a little bit easier on your customers, right? So first thing is the receptionist needs to have the ability to schedule, okay? So they need to be able to schedule on with the receptionist. Don't transfer them across to a bunch of new people or different people, where they can get things scheduled. Don't put them on hold an awful lot. They need to have a great experience starting in the beginning, so that when you get closer to the end of a service that you've provided, that's when you can ask for the review and get a positive review. We've always found that if they have to wait less than 1 minute to talk with a live person as a new patient, that's where you see the most value. If you are having people fill out forms, because again, this is probably something that's a little bit more planned for, call them. Reach out and call within an hour of business hours. In fact, the sooner the better. If they're requesting information and they need to schedule something, you get their email and you get their phone number, give them a call and send them a follow-up email. If you don't, you're going to run the risk of people going elsewhere or deciding they're going to wait till later or things like that. You want to get them right when they're thinking about it. And with this particular industry or particular vertical, calls really lead most of the conversions. again, folks don't like to provide a lot of private information if they don't have to, especially if they haven't made up their mind as to whether or not they're going to work with you or they're going to move forward. So calls lead to the most conversions. They get on there, they have a conversation, and that's where you can train up the front desk staff or the receptionist to kind of work people through this funnel. It's still a sales funnel, right? We're trying to generate revenue, so you can teach them how to walk somebody through this funnel from I'm calling for information to I went ahead and scheduled an appointment, and that's really what we're looking for. If we move on to our next slide, you can see a couple of quick examples here. The top one, obviously, you can see that the calls from ads generated the most conversions by far. And we're looking at about a 9 or a 10 month period there. And then we've got some ads below it. You can see family doctors, primary care doctors, things like that. And you can see where those conversions are coming from. You see on both of them, there's a pretty high, or on family doctors, there's a high amount of phone calls, but also a pretty high amount of conversions that have come through. So all things you want to look at, mix your channels in together, but remember that your website and your phone calls are going to be two of the most important things here. All right, and we'll move on to our last bit about the non-elective category. We got one category left after this. TPA tends to work best, like we talked about it. That's your top placement ads, paid advertising on Google and Bing. SEO is incredibly important because you need to rank organically. You need to have your site ranking organically in maps. You need to have it ranking organically when people are searching for doctors' names, for different procedures, things like that. The higher you can rank, the more trust you build. $2 to $8 cost per click. Conversion rates of between 2 and 11% on paid, and a 2.5 to 5% overall. And that overall includes people that have visited your site organically, people that are researching, things like that. Like we talked about earlier, social targeting ads, which are ads on Facebook or social profiles, can help to drive brand awareness. People are coming, they're new to the area, and they need to know about you. Long-term patients, obviously, you want to drive a lot of value for them, and, take care of them, really. It's a little tougher because, again, CRM, email, and SMS, tough to do because of HIPAA compliance. Again, a lot of folks will use the EMR, but you can use that information to ensure that you're providing a great value to your patients and ensuring that they're long-term and they've got great things to say, they provide reviews, and they send referrals, all things you want. Let's move on. Now we're going to talk about the elective and referral category here. High-level overview on this. Again, fairly similar to what we saw in the non-elective, because you do need to ensure that your ads are there, that there's brand awareness about the services that you provide, and that you're ranking organically to build trust. Generally speaking, this is not going to be something that is just, I woke up today and decided I was going to get a nose job. They do a lot of research. They do a lot of digging into this, and they want to kind of identify different things that make the most sense to them. Okay, so we've got another question. Wookie Feet, again, thank you. How do we view the rise of Bing? Less computer literate people are using it as a default search engine, and ad costs for Bing are almost a steal. They absolutely are, but I wouldn't refer to that as less literate. In fact, there's been some studies that have shown that younger generations are using Bing more, or they're using a little bit more often. Bing is making a lot of changes, and it's a lot of it's important to them to drive new demographics and new people to that search engine, but you're not wrong. You can absolutely run a lot of ads on Bing for a steal. But consider it like this, if I'm making up numbers here, if 80% of people are using Google, then you're only reaching 20%. Now the cost may be lower, but there's also a much smaller margin of people for you to reach out to. So you want to consider that. But I do love including Bing into the marketing mix. It depends on your strategies and your channels, but you can find a lot of value there. All right, for back to these electives and referrals. Typical demographic generally is 25 years and older. You're not going to find a lot of younger folks that are looking for elective surgeries or different processes like that. Reviews, again, incredibly important. So topratedlocal.com, you can use that for free. Set up your business, get everything you want on there. It shows you that review aggregate. And depending on your specialty, now this is where it kind of changes from some of the other verticals. You may want to have before and after galleries. Now, keep this in mind, is that the before and after gallery is really showcasing what people can expect. So you want to make sure that you've got your best foot forward. This kind of goes back to that question we had a little while ago about video. If I'm putting a video on my site and the video isn't exactly great quality, should I feel good or bad about it? The pictures are the same way, but in all honesty, most people kind of expect that you have a good camera by now. It's just pretty standard. I mean, the cameras on these phones are all pretty powerful. So if you don't have a good phone camera, you don't have anybody around that has a great digital camera, just hire someone to do some good before and after pictures. It's worth it. It's worth the investment because this is what people are going to see. And there, a lot of people are going to be a little bit flexible on video. They're going to be a lot less flexible on pictures. So if it's all grainy, grayed out, bad lighting, you're not a good photographer for whatever reason, you want to make sure that your before and after galleries are actually high quality because people are going to really be looking at these. Again, it depends on your specialty, but that is something to consider. SEO, of course, an important strategy included here because you need to be ranking organically and ranking highly so you can build that trust. And then again, a little bit different for this vertical versus some others is insurance coverage and financing options. A lot of elective surgeries, plastic surgery, for example, are not covered by insurance. So that's an automatic and immediate question that people are going to have. Is there financing available? What are my options? What can I do? Things like that. So you can save your team a lot of time. You can save the front desk some time here by answering a lot of these questions. Now, you don't have to provide all of the answers because you still want people to reach out to you. But you do want to make sure that you're providing enough information that they're educated. And the more educated a consumer, the more valuable they are as a customer. So make sure that you're providing the educational information that they need. All right. Let's jump on down here and talk about the strategies again. Next slide. Overall, kind of the strategy remains the same as urgent care and non-elective. More of this is related to what's on the site when they get there, right? Now, we generally find with this one, people are a lot less willing to wait for their experience of talking to a live person. Less than 20 seconds should be your goal before they speak to the right person. And the call needs to be answered live. Don't use a call center or a call service. It's just not valuable. They want to know that they're speaking with someone who can answer their questions, who can schedule it. Now, if you have a call center that can do this, answer the questions, schedule your meetings, schedule the appointments, get that all taken care of, that's fine. But don't run them through all of the myriad of questions and the departments to go to and stuff like that. Let them talk to a real live person. This is a complex conversation to have. And throwing a phone tree in there just really kind of it adds a lot of friction, and consumers don't really like that. Less than 1 minute of wait time. Obviously, no one likes to wait on the phone. And referrals can come in from primary care and other offices. So, if you are connected with other offices, be sure to put that on your site also. If there's other networks that you work with or sites that businesses, locations, things like that, putting that information on there, especially if you have a lot of different providers that you network with, that builds some trust and it adds a lot of value there also. So that's something to consider. Again, the strategy kind of remains the same across all three of them. We add a little bit more on the organic and the social side when we're talking about the non-elective and the elective versus urgent care. And for elective and referral, we're talking a little bit more emphasis on things on the site. But overall, the marketing strategy remains very similar. Let's go ahead and move down. We're going to talk about just a little bit here, going to cover some of our costs. Again, top placement ads work best because this is something that people are searching for. They don't need you to find them. They're going to hunt for it. SEO, of course, we talked about it, increases your trust, it increases your ranking, and that gives you a boost of conversions across the board. Now, cost per click here is a little bit higher than we've seen some other places. This is $4 to $14. A lot of that has to do with there's more competition. This is more of an elective, so you probably are going to see less overall conversions than maybe urgent care, right? I don't have a choice. I got to go to urgent care. I do have a choice as to whether or not I want a nose job. I can wait. So the costs are a little bit higher. There's more competition. Conversion rates between 2 and 5% on paid, and you'll notice it's about 2.4 to 5.4% overall. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are kind of researching and they're kind of identifying what they want. But the way that they find you is generally based on search specifically. So that's why those conversion rates are fairly similar. Social targeting ads, we had talked about. They do drive traffic, but they've got a low conversion rate. Again, that's more of an interest base, like that top of funnel. They're not ready to go, but they do need to know you exist. So could be valuable there. Again, the services are a little bit more expensive, so you generally find that folks are a little bit older. You're not going to find, college students doing this. It's an older, slightly older demographic. And again, the CRM, email, SMS, all of that tough because of HIPAA, so use an EMR. That's where you find a lot of the value. Moving on. Let's talk about our post-conversion funnel, okay? This is just getting an inquiry is only the beginning. Inquiry, phone call, form fill out. Turning that person into a patient is the goal, or is the idea, and creating a lifetime customer is the goal. So you want to have feedback and reviews. You want to make sure that people have a great experience with you and they communicate with you. One of the greatest ways to do this is to do something unexpected. Just something unexpected there. I had a great experience with my wife had a great experience with a dentist a couple of months ago. They had misquoted pricing, and that was going to cause a little bit of anxiety as it related to insurance. And they sent her flowers at the door, apologizing. They reached out a little while later. Hey, is there anything else that we can do? And they did everything they could do to make it right. Not their fault. Miscommunication between the office and insurance, but they did everything they could to make sure that we weren't stressed and that it alleviated some of the concern. So do something unexpected, something that somebody wouldn't normally look for. And if you can turn that into something where all of your staff are empowered to do something unexpected, that's where it starts to become a culture, and that really changes your business as it relates to others. Finally, you want to make sure that your marketing material, if you have takeaways or things that people need to take home with them, they need to do research, they need to follow specific procedures or things like that. You want to make sure it's high quality, that it's easy for them to follow up on, easy for them to still trust it. They can easily pass off, the marketing material or the instructions to a family member who may need to help guide them, and it's easy to understand, and it kind of a transfer of trust, right? So consider that also. The post-conversion funnel is almost as important as just about anything else that you do, because it costs so much money to generate a new customer, but it doesn't cost nearly as much. And in fact, it costs between 3 and 5 times more to create a new customer than it does to keep an old one. So if you're able to build this network of individuals that have worked with you and are willing to work with you again, you'll find that your revenue is going up, but your costs, they're not reflective of the amount of business that you're doing. Let's jump down. Having another thing about the social media here, having a strong social media presence, whether you're running ads or not, is really important, because this is how people connect. They connect with you. Social media pierces the corporate veil. They can start to believe and understand that you're a person, not just a business or a brand name. And additionally, people like to look for social proof. We all like to believe that we are the smartest person. So if we find that somebody online shares our opinion or validates our opinion, well, we feel great about that. And that's a big part of looking for that social proof there. So develop unique and engaging posts and start to develop a community on there. Provide great information. We've got an example here of 5 fun MRI facts. I would have ever considered 5 fun MRI facts, but now I know them. An example is going to be the review from Alexis for Servant Medical Imaging. Having reviews on there is really valuable and powerful to kind of showcase the value that you bring. And then we've got a quote over here also. So just things that people can engage with, they can learn to trust you, they like you. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of doctors' offices and medical facilities really love blue as the color. Blue is a trust color. People inherently and automatically kind of associate some trust value with that color there, which may be an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself online by integrating some other kinds of colors or complementary colors. You can see over on the right there with the quote with the orange lettering. It kind of brightens it up and draws the eye a little bit. Something maybe you can change about different things that you're doing to help increase your social presence and some trust there. Let's move on. Summing everything up, when we're talking about medical marketing, the biggest things to remember are that you have to ensure that you're HIPAA compliant. You can't record phone calls. You can't track customer information, private customer information in a CRM that's not HIPAA compliant. EMRs are a little bit more popular there, but there are some CRMs that are HIPAA compliant, which may give you the opportunity you're looking for. Retargeting, generally not on the table for medical practices really of any kind. including the cosmetics and electives and things like that, because it's just a privacy concern for Google and Facebook. They don't really want to be involved in that. But primarily the goals here are driving phone calls. So click-to-call ads, high location in maps, a strong organic presence, to build that trust, videos and high quality content on your site. All of those pieces together and a strong social presence, all of those pieces together are really going to help to increase the brand awareness, increase your value proposition, and kind of showcase who you are, what you offer, and why you are the company to choose. You're the doctor to work with. All right. Finally, again, you can find this presentation later on at m360.us/C13F. If you're looking for additional resources, go to youtube.com/marketing360. We've got a ton of videos on there that you'll find that'll be incredibly helpful. And finally, if you do want to work with us here at Marketing 360, please go to marketing360.com/start. Just fill out a brief form there. We'll give you a call, start strategizing with you, identify what your goals are and how we can help you reach them. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Happy marketing.